Good morning, everyone. We will be studying Zechariah chapter 9, and I will be dividing this into two parts. The first part is the prophecy against Lebanon. The first four verses are prophecies against Tyre and Sidon. Historically, sila ang mga kaaway ng Israel. These were the two major cities north of Israel in the land of Lebanon. Tyre was an important commercial city that was thought to be impossible to conquer. The Assyrians laid siege against Tyre for 5 years but never conquered the city. Nebuchadnezzar tried for 13 years to conquer Tyre, but Alexander the Great did it in 7 months only. Very spectacular yung military and engineering strategy niya to turn to rubble the cities in just 7 months. He was actually used by God as an instrument of judgment for these nations. Ang sumagi sa isip ko sa pangyayari ito ay ang kaganapan ngayon sa Israel sa pag-invade ng mga teroristang Hamas. If Alexander the Great did it in 7 months, but now with the modern technology, in just a matter of minutes, an entire city can be turned into rubbles. It can be wiped out. I couldn't imagine the terror of those that are in Gaza. Dahil libo-libong rockets, ang pinaulanan sila from different directions at ang mga gunman ng Hamas bukod dito ay invaded them by land and by sea. Ngayon, thousands of people have been murdered and kidnapped. And they were using what we might describe inhuman methods, targeting young women and young children, launching massive indiscriminate rocket fire towards civilian population centers, as well as terrorist infiltration of cities and settlements close to the Gaza border. Can you imagine the terror of the people there? Kasi mga kapatid, literally, nagbahay-bahay talaga sila looking for the young and the elderly. This attack is simply without precedent, causing Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu to say, "We are at war." Interesting how it always comes back to Jerusalem. Very clear sa Bible sa mga prophecies nito thousands of years ago that the end times events would revolve around Jerusalem. This tiny little city will play a key role in the events of the last days. It's the focal point of the end times events. It's amazing when you think about it because in Zechariah chapter 12 verses 3 to 4, God says, "I will make Jerusalem like an intoxicating drink that makes the nearby nations stagger when they send their armies to besiege Jerusalem and Judah. On that day, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock. All the nations will gather against it to try to move it, but they will only hurt themselves." In verse 8, "I will camp around my house because of the army, because of him who passes by." This indicates God's hand of protection to the Israelites. When Alexander the Great marched through Lebanon and the Promised Land towards Egypt, he did not conquer or attack Jerusalem. God promised to protect and spare his house during this time, and he did through a remarkable chain of events connected to Alexander the Great and the high priest. Actually, you can refer this to the history of Alexander the Great's meeting with the high priest. Kasi God protected Jerusalem from Alexander's laying siege against it. Alexander passed through the city a few times but never tried to conquer it because it was under divine protection. Ang pangalawa nating prophecy is part is the prophecy of the coming king and his deliverance. In verse 8 nakalagay, a lowly king comes into Jerusalem. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem, behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. Mga kapatid, Jesus is the long-anticipated King spoken here. Jesus is the righteous one who knew no sin while walking in perfect obedience to the Father. Jesus is the humble one who came not to be served, but to serve. Jesus is the one who selflessly came to save his people through his death on the cross. Jesus is the King who came to bring peace. In verse 10, his dominion shall be from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. When Jesus rules over this earth, his reign will be universal. The entire earth will be under his authority. In his first coming, Christ was killed by his enemies, and he suffered as a humble servant. In his second coming, Jesus will be given dominion over the nations. He will gather all things in heaven and earth under his rule. Death shall be no more, neither mourning nor crying nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. During the second coming of Jesus, he will defeat the Antichrist, destroy evil, and establish his millennial kingdom. Mga kapatid, the Lord faithfully invites all of us into a deeper faith. Ask God to use whatever it takes, not to build faith to Him. Maraming salamat po. A blessed morning once and all. God bless you.